6 of us answered the call of warriors. 6 with their own reasons to fight, but only 5 would come back alive at the end. I belong to this land, the Carabao Tieflings, the hardiest of people, proud and noble. Our ancestors till the soil and grow the crops from generation to generation. With the blessings of the volcano spirit Nulkab, producing ash and making the land fertile and good. But I took to a different path. I became a headhunter, a warrior of Timanduk, and protector of its people. So it is no surprise why I would be ready to answer the Raha's call. On this day, we were sent out to investigate disappearances at the Merchant Splendor, the sea trade route of Timanduk. Merchants and fishermen reported to have disappeared with no trace, and their boats left adrift. Together with me is the cursed rogue who I have befriended from our previous quests, along with the volcano cleric, the human barbarian, a Baliti elf babaylan, and the sea genasi waterfall druid. We arrived at the trade port, and although in the surface things looked normal and lively, we would occasionally hear murmurs and a sense of fear from the villagers. They know about the disappearances, and it won't take long for panic to set in. So we immediately began our investigation by asking the portsman, an old man called Agat. We wanted to know details concerning the disappearances, but as we asked our questions, our rogue couldn't help himself. He was caught trying to steal using his mage hand spell. The victim, a merchant, panicked and thought he was going to be taken too. Worse, seeing the rogue to be a cursed being. The screaming created panic, and the Timawas warriors were forced to intervene and keep the chaos from escalating. In the end, we had to explain ourselves to the Timawas, and Agat was none too happy at the trouble we caused. Luckily, we had come to an agreement, and Agat allowed us to rent his boats so we could head out to the area where the disappearances happened. We took 3 Baroto rowboats and left for the Merchant Splendor. It was quiet night, and the sea breeze washed away the humidity. When we arrived at the spot of the disappearances, nothing had happened. But after a while, a fog had set in, and we heard the most beautiful of songs. It was as if the sea spirit Tulaylupa herself sang with her soothing voice. Then, within the fog, we saw these women in the water, beckoning us to join in for a swim. I wanted to jump so badly, but something wasn't right. I blinked and peered through the fog. These women had suddenly opened their abnormally large mouths to reveal rows of teeth, reminiscing that of an anglerfish. The horror had set in, and some of us were too engrossed in the charm of the song and reached out into the waters. These creatures tipped our boats and grabbed on to the most vulnerable. Those of us who had remained sane fought back, but my weapons did nothing to them, as if my blade hit iron rather than flesh. Luckily, with our magic casters, we managed to repel a few, but as soon as the fight reached its most desperate, they just left. It was then that we realized that the volcano cleric had been taken away during the chaos of the fight. We wanted to give chase, but these creatures were too fast in water. so we calmed ourselves to plan a rescue. The Babaylan had figured out the identity of these creatures, the Magindara, hailed as the aswang of the sea. They sing with beautiful voices to lull sailors, who would then be eaten in their nest. They would not be killed by ordinary weapons, but are vulnerable to weapons made of pure wood from the land. We took some extra oars from the boat and made some makeshift spears and clubs. Now we had to figure out where their nest is. This was what I was trained for: to hunt, to track. I called upon the magic of my ancestors to show me the path of my quarry. And so they send an ancestral carabao to point us towards their nest. The hunt is on. We arrived at a cave by the sea, and with the magics of our druid, we snuck in undetected. The volcano cleric was alive, but restrained. She was bound and would be the next meal for the Magindaras. Luckily, the Magindaras were too preoccupied as we positioned ourselves for the attack. It was quick and efficient. Our first round of attacks dealt a massive blow and killed one of the Magindaras. But as soon as the creatures were able to react, things became more difficult. They pounced and clawed with desperation as our barbarian and Babaylan ran to the aid of our cleric. The rest of us held most of them off, and our Genasi druid used the very tides to smash the creatures into the rocks. We were winning, and the Magindaras would soon be dealt with. But things never go as planned. The Magindaras had suddenly coordinated and risked themselves for a massive attack. I saw them come together, leaving their current foes to swarm on our druid. She was surrounded, and tried as she might with all her magic, but it was too much. We couldn't reach her in time. It was gruesome. They piled on her, ripping flesh from bone and plunging their claws into her still beating heart. The scene was terrible, and I knew that she was dead. We eliminated the remaining Magindaras, all except one who was able to escape into the sea. That would have to be dealt with at a later time. Right now was to tend to our wounds and bury our dead. We didn't have to do much with the body. The waterfall druid had turned to liquid and rejoined with the sea. She died as a warrior, protecting the people of this land. We will remember, and we will continue to protect Timanduk in her place, for that is what it means to answer the call of warriors. Thanks for listening. Continue rolling those dice, and if you like my content, then like and subscribe so I can upload more stories like this in the future.